Join us at Contact in the Desert, June 1st to 3rd, 2018, at Indian Wells, California. It's another adventure with HiddenIncaTours.com. Today, an extended version look at magnetic anomalies and other things at Puma Punku and Tiwanaku in Bolivia. So as we enter the site, you can see ancient shaped stones half buried in the ground. And here is another example of one that's almost completely buried, the result of simply local people scavenging and taking the site apart, or possibly evidence of an ancient cataclysm that happened here at Puma Punku. Now, the excavations in this area have only been done between 2 and 3 feet deep, but it's highly likely that there are other stones and aspects of this site much deeper underground. Again, you see shattered elements of Puma Punku, some as the result of the Spanish or local people. But Antonio Portugal has done ground penetrating radar and has found that there are chambers underneath Puma Punku and the Tiwanaku area that the archaeologists refuse to recognize or dig down into, because they don't want history to be rewritten. But hopefully we'll be able to do that in the future. And then we have the magnetic anomalies. Here on the top of this stone, you can see how the compass reacts to something going on. And then on the surface, again, you see quite wild magnetic variations. And curiously, when we go down the stone, you see there's almost no variation whatsoever. It's horizontal, but not vertical. And here at one of the famous H blocks, you see the compass altering to some degree along the surface. But more importantly, when we put the compass into the center of this H block and then pull it back out, you see it shifts by 90 degrees and then 180 degrees plus. Again, on the surface of one of the H blocks, you see it moves by at least 90 degrees, pointing into the middle, and then fluctuates more. And then going inside the unfinished H block, not as much variation as compared to a finished H block. And here again, along the front, I believe of the unfinished H block, almost no variation in magnetism. But again, going into the center of a third H block, some variation, but not as much as the first one we looked at. So here you get to see most of Puma Punku and 2 of the 9 H blocks that exist. And here we have one of the gates broken, likely due to local people looking for construction material, possibly hundreds of years ago. But you see the complexity of all of the cutting that's been done to this stone. And this is where we find the foundation blocks made of red sandstone. And the quarry is beyond those mountains more than 9 miles away, or 15 kilometers. And here on the foundation blocks, different shapes of keystone cuts that once held bronze clasps. And here, another depression of a keystone cut. This is one of the largest of the red sandstone slabs, reported to be somewhere in the region of 131 tons. And there you see a foundation block partly submerged in the background. Also, these curious cut marks. No one's been able to explain exactly what these were for. And then when we go up to one of the larger andesite blocks, very little magnetic variation. Until we come to the end. Is it possible that the cutting and shaping of the andesite was done using some kind of tool that utilized magnetism? So here we have the finished H block, or one of them, and you see the two little false doors in the center. But this H block was never finished because you see the rough surface of the interior and no presence of the false doors. And then as we look at the top of the finished H block, or one of them, you see the crisp corners. And with the unfinished H block, the corners are slightly rounded. So this was never finished. There appears to be two levels of technology used to make them. And you see the beautiful flatness of the surface of the outside, but the roughness and the rounding of the interior. So the external part was complete, the internal part was never complete, and that is not something I believe anyone else has reported. And these are the backs of the H blocks, showing that they're different. So the H blocks were not created in molds, and they were not created en masse. Each one was hand carved, or not hand carved, but each one was individually shaped. But the question is, why variation? What was the actual function of the H blocks? So here on the backs of the H blocks, again we take the compass, and you can see there is some variation in magnetism, but not as strong as on the front sides. Again, pulling the compass out of a finished H block, it shifts by at least 180 degrees, no, 270 degrees. And then when it's put back inside again, the needle points to the false door. And so here on another stone, you see as soon as the compass is over the andesite, it automatically shifts away from the normal magnetic pattern of the background. And that is proven here as we pull the compass back. That is what the normal compass should do. And then on the front, you see wild variation in terms of the compass reacting to varying magnetism. So the shapes of andesite, or the blocks of andesite that have complex indentation patterns, the compass reacts much more to these than to a simple flat andesite surface, because this is one of the so-called gates. It's simply a flat surface, and you see that the compass basically doesn't respond very much whatsoever to a flat surface. Also, on these red sandstone blocks, you see the black marks. That is not lichen or anything like that. The stone has actually been melted on the surface. It's been fused. The quartz has turned into a type of glass. So that is a sign, I believe, of an ancient cataclysmic event, not simply a fire in the local area. And now we're actually on the side of the Puma Punku so-called pyramid. And you see very tight-fitting stone blocks, no mortar in between. And here again, compared to this, a Tiwanaku culture construction from 1,000 to 2,000 years ago, you can see it's quite sloppy. And as we enter in, we see the Tiwanaku work from 1,000 to 2,000 years ago, and what is likely to be thousands upon thousands of years older, which is the original construction of Puma Punku. This is all solid red sandstone. But then, this upper level is the andesite. So since the andesite is magnetic, it's quite possible that the original function of Puma Punku was obviously magnetic. And here in the background, that is Cerocopia. That is where the gray andesite comes from, 75 kilometers or 45 miles away. We also get clues from this ancient staircase facing Lake Titicaca. You can see the difference between the huge and worn sandstone slabs, and at the bottom you see the more recent Tiwanaku period reconstruction using smaller blocks recycled from Puma Punku. This is what Puma Punku supposedly originally looked like. And here again, the very rough Tiwanaku civilization work from 1,000 to 2,000 years ago. And this, which is a remnant of the much older construction phase of Puma Punku. And here again on another side of the Puma Punku so-called pyramid, we go from fine construction to very rough. So from original builder to the Tiwanaku culture. And what is up with this channel? It's far too big to simply be a water channel, and it is incredibly well done. It used to have the bronze clasps, which likely the Tiwanaku civilization pried out and used to make knives or spear points. And here again, you see the fineness of the construction. The lid fits interlocking with the stones. And as we continue around the perimeter, we see catastrophic damage to the site, likely not simply from people excavating and taking the stone away, but it looks like it's been hit by some massive cataclysm. And here again, we see the melting and the burning of the surface of the red sandstone. So now we move on to the Kalasasaya, which is part of the Tiwanaku complex. Tiwanaku and Puma Punku are the same, they've simply been given different names. So here on top of the Akapana so-called pyramid, we see these andesite stones protruding. They were probably lined up by archaeologists. We don't know where they were originally located, but once again, we're going to test for magnetism. So you see, the surfaces are not complex, and so with this one, we don't find very much variation in the magnetism. This one too is a flat surface. You can see the needle is moving 90 degrees, and then almost 180, but then back and forth. And then on the third, not much variation. Oh, now there is 90 degrees. Now even more. And the corners seem to be very sensitive to magnetism changes. And then on the fourth block, very little change. This is actually quite a shallow stone. And here, the smallest one, some variation in magnetism, and again, more at the corners. Intriguing. Now, these two large slabs were originally sitting, this one was lying face down, and that's why the surface is still in good shape. But you can see the interior, or there you see the exterior, was very finely finished, preserved because it was lying face down. But the interior is rougher. And so this is another example of where we see two different forms of technology. One, almost like a sandblasting or a molding, almost like it was butter. And then the secondary technology creates the sharp corners and also the very flat surfaces. What types of technology was used, we're still researching. This, I believe, is my 55th trip to Puma Punku and Tiwanaku. And then the one next to it was lying face up. So you see all of the erosion, but again, the interior was never completed because it has rounded corners. If complete, it should have very crisp corners. Now, to show that one was lying face down and the other face up, we're going to the back side. So the one on the left you see, still a very nice flat surface because it was protected from the elements by lying down, the other not. And let's see what happens with magnetism with this one. Automatically a variation of almost 90 degrees upon contact. And then here it's starting to act reasonably wild. And once again, going from the background, touching the surface, automatically quite a wild shift in the compass. And this is a sculpture of the bearded god or bearded ancient teacher called Viracocha or Viracochan or Wiracochan. Thank you so much for watching this video, and stay tuned for more at hiddenincatours.com. So these are related books at amazon.com. The Enigma of Tiwanaku and Puma Punku, a Visitor's Guide. Lost Ancient Technology of Peru and Bolivia. Of course, Tiwanaku and Puma Punku are extensively looked at. And Aftershock, the ancient cataclysm that erased human history and likely erased much of Puma Punku and Tiwanaku. Then, upcoming tours for 2018. Our Mexico tour of the Maya, Olmec, Toltec, and Aztecs in January 2018. Egypt, a study of lost ancient high technology before the pharaohs in March 2018. Contact in the Desert, June 1 to 3, 2018 at Indian Wells, California. The Inti Raymi Inca Celebration of the Sun in June in Cusco, Peru, and beyond. The Elongated Skulls Tour of Peru in August. And the coast of Croatia, ancient sites, and the Bosnian pyramids in October.